Welcome. You've found your anchor at the crossroads of power and presence. This is Musings and Modalities. It's time to move beyond the noise and cultivate a legacy rooted in values-aligned leadership and earth energy. We've evolved the conversation, bringing you a grounded perspective on embodying true luxury and beauty in your life and work. If you feel the resonance of truth and are ready for the shift, you are home. Hey everyone, and welcome to Musings and Modalities. I'm Tristen Stawicki, and I'm so excited for today's episode entitled Game Day Ready, Winning Casual Fans with Reimagined Hospitality with Katie Rudy. Before I dive into the episode, I wanted to discuss my summer offer. You've spent decades building a life that looks successful, but you know your profound legacy is meant to be far greater than your current output. If corporate exhaustion and uncertainty are blocking your path, it's time for a decisive and aligned change. This 12-week one-on-one Musings and Modalities container is the definitive strategic framework designed to eliminate burnout and anchor you into your most impactful decade. This is not surface level coaching, it is an energetic and strategic makeover required to claim your next level. This includes radical clarity, where you'll define the exact blueprint of your legacy and implement a value aligned strategy to build it, ensuring every action aligns with your true purpose. This includes unshakable authority. Exchange the need for external validation with grounded self trust, positioning you as the leading embodied authority you are meant to be. And of course, proven results. Clients consistently report feeling inspired, lighter, and more in tune with themselves after our sessions. You get transformation that delivers immediate, measurable relief from the tired, mad, and blah cycle through working with me. With those only 4 exclusive slots available, this opportunity is reserved for those who are ready to commit to their quantum leap in impact and income. You can book your discovery call today at musingsandmodalities.com and step into your true power. And now I'd love to introduce Katie Rudy. Katie works with sports organizations to better understand what casual fans, first-time guests, and fans returning after years away need to navigate, participate in, and belong within the game day experience. Through fandom and hospitality sprints, she identifies where fans are forced to rely on insider knowledge and where organizations have opportunities to create more autonomy, clarity, and connection through the fan journey. Before launching Game Day Ready, Katie spent more than a decade working in collegiate athletics and sports marketing. Today, she combines fan psychology, hospitality principles, and hands-on experience to bridge the gap between fan insight and organizational action. Katie, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to have this conversation today.
Me too. I absolutely love kind of your purpose and your company Game Day Ready. And it really focuses on creating that beautiful environment so that people don't feel left out and they feel welcomed and they feel like they're a part of something without needing years and years and, some parent explaining something to them. I know that there are a lot of kind of barriers as a fan, especially as someone that likes to, I'd say, dabble in sports. I'm
Yep.
always open to a game. There's like 2 or 3 sports. I love baseball and I love hockey that I'm much more committed to. But what are kind of the biggest barrier organizations face in bridging that gap between that insider knowledge and a clear, connected fan experience?
So I think it comes from a couple of different things. Is one, there are so many different parties that have a role in the game day experience, and it's making sure that they're all speaking the same fan language, not just speaking the same event language. And marketing and communications and operations and your digital teams all play a role in helping to craft that. And then it's also executed by, a lot of third-party companies, your security, your concessions, your ushers. There's so many people that have a hand in the game day experience. And it's thinking through is what is the journey that the fans experience, and is it one consistent journey so that they're not feeling like that was the thing that was handled by marketing and that was the thing that was handled by communications. It's understanding like how are they all speaking to each other and making sure that there is one consistent journey that people are going through, especially when you're in that critical phase between your ticket purchase and leaving the driveway, and thinking about what is the information that's available for people to plan the experience that they want to have, and where are they finding it? Are they having to go to multiple different places in order to find all of the information that they need, or is it in one clear spot so that they can plan the experience that makes the most sense for them, their family, their party, whoever is coming to the game with them?
I love that, especially because weather considerations, clothing considerations, the things that we do have control over as, attendees of an event. But sometimes it's really hard,
Absolutely.
yeah, to understand. Like for hockey, like I can't tell you how many times I freeze at hockey games because in the South, right, we're like walking
Right.
from the parking lot, or for those of us that park outside the parking lot and walk in to avoid paying the parking
Yeah.
fees,
Yeah.
and then you're so cold inside the arena.
And well, you can even think about, I have worked a number of football games, the fall, the sun shifts over the course of a football game. And what are you sitting in the sun? Are you sitting in the shade? At what point does the sun go behind the stadium? At what point were you in the sun and now it becomes a shade? So even thinking about, the change between September to November, how much of a contrast that can have. And you're in a completely different experience than what you might have had even if you went to a game earlier in the year.
Mm, absolutely. Yeah. I also think about food too, because not every, I think baseball, is kind of but all places where I've attended sports have had this issue where like different vendors have different food items. And even if it's like a stadium or arena, like kind of their general package of chicken tenders, like sometimes they'll have a chili dog at one stand, but it won't be at the
Yes.
other three. And there's things like that that have these kind of points of friction that's really challenging as someone that's unfamiliar, with a new space.
I just went to an event a couple weeks ago and I walked around half the stadium trying to find chicken tenders, and it was sold at a stand labeled Hamburger House. So, totally understand the challenge that people who even aren't familiar with the event space or, the stadium space, what they're experiencing and how they're trying to navigate that. I actually had to stop someone and say, like, where did you get those? Because I couldn't find it.
Yeah. And they also change too. Like I love going to the Durham Bulls games, and for the past 3 seasons we've had Jello shots, and it was a tradition. My husband and I would get like a Jello shot kind of to kick off the
Hmm.
game, and now they don't serve them anymore. And it's just like little things like that too also impact the fan experience, where you're
Yeah.
like those decisions do, affect everything of what they choose to serve or not to, because it was something that we did with friends as well. And so that's like a key element that I've really loved for several years that now doesn't exist.
Yes. And I've talked to a number of people recently where, I have one friend who has a number of dietary restrictions. And so if she can't figure out exactly what's available to her before she can go to the game, then she eats before because she doesn't want to go and have 4 hours that she hasn't had food, but she can't risk it. So unless she is 100% certain that there's something there for her, not only does that change her experience, like she wants to go out, she wants to have a snack at the game and enjoy that full experience. But that's also lost revenue for the venue because of the fact that they haven't explained that information.
Definitely. No, it's such a great point. Um, and I really love what you do with Game Day Ready is you're using kind of these incredible skills you have with fan psychology, hospitality principles, that hands-on experience being a fan. I would love to talk about like a common game day pain point that we haven't yet discussed and how you apply that principle of really reimagined hospitality that can transform that experience for especially first-time fans.
So one of the things I think about, particularly when I think about the term hospitality, is it's really about anticipating needs, right? If you're welcoming somebody into your house, you're thinking about, okay, I'm going to set the towels out in their rooms that they already have those and they're not trying to ask for those as they're about ready to go take a shower, right? It's the same kind of thing. And one of the best examples, if you want to talk about radical hospitality, is the number one question that Disney gets, and the thing that they use to train a lot of their cast members is what time is the 3 o'clock parade? And I've actually used this example in some of the guest experience trainings that I've done. What people are asking is not what time is the 3 o'clock parade. But what they're trying to figure out is when is the 3 o'clock parade going to get to where I am in Magic Kingdom? And how soon do I need to get a spot? Like, where should I sit? Do I have time to hold my spot and go get a snack? Like, how do I plan my day around the 3 o'clock parade? And so Disney cast members have been trained to ask, well, where are you going to be? Are you going to be in Adventureland? Are you going to be in on Main Street USA? Like, here are some of the things to help guide that experience. And so when you think about it from that lens of what actually is the question that people are asking, or what might be some of the questions that people are asking, and how can we serve that information in advance? Coming from a college sports world, I think a lot about, college football is really one of the biggest game day experiences that you have. And when you think about the number of different elements, we share things like there's the player walk or the player arrival or like the team entrance, but we don't share enough information about what happens there, what time you need to be there, what are the things that happen, why should you be there, and how early you need to get there. So, think about things like, do the players engage? Can kids get autographs? Like these are all the things that kids want to know. So, can you outline some of that information in advance? Can you let people know how early they should line up? What are some of the things that they should expect around there? Are there other things to do while they're waiting? So that when I think about radical hospitality, it's thinking about how you can anticipate some of the questions that people might be asking and provide that information up front.
I love that so much. I feel like the Durham Performing Arts Center does a great job, and I know that's outside of sports, but does a great job of the day of the game of any game happening locally. They say,
Hmm.
hey, parking's going to be heavy. Like I know you're coming for an event, but these are the things going on downtown. Here's what you can expect as you kind of walk into the Performing Arts Center. Don't forget, like you can't have a bag or whatever their stipulations are, and like that's always so great to get. And then I get a survey immediately after, and I think about how interesting that would be if sports implemented more of that kind of hospitality, that the theater I feel like can do really well already.
You brought up the DPAC and Durham Performing Arts Center, and that's one of the examples that I look at because I think they do such a great job of one of the things that I think is great is they give you really time parameters, is that they say, be downtown 45 minutes before the show starts. Not just arrive early, because early can be something different, or early can be 5 minutes for some people.
Yeah.
But that doesn't give you enough time to get processed through the gates and scan your ticket and get into your seats in order to see the start of something. So saying 45 minutes early gives people much more of a time parameter. They, like you said, they do say Durham Bulls are in town. I would give yourself an hour, but they have also built out you're a first time guest. Here are some things you might want to know in terms of here's how to dress, here's the protocol, like here's how we behave at shows. And that's separate from their typical know before you go page. So I love the fact that they really help orient first time guests and offer more information, knowing that not everybody needs that.
Absolutely. I also find the culture through each employee that I interact with, whether I'm buying food or water or being shown to a seat, like whatever that is, like everyone's incredibly kind and you can feel how genuine they
Yes.
are. And that's not always the case, right? When I go to different events outside of DPAC and other places.
No, I agree. And my favorite, there was one usher that I was at a show the one time that she was so proud. It was like out of Office Space. She was proud to show off all of her flair of all the shows that she's
Oh,
been a part of and was talking about all the different pins that she had on. And so she was so proud of the number of things that she'd been able to experience and was able to talk about that to different guests.
I love that. I also find in a similar vein because I do go to games frequently and I do go to events at performing arts centers frequently, and I often don't see the same people at games. And it feels very much that like if someone's clocking in for a shift or more of that part-time work, that I really don't feel like I build the relationships as much as I do other places in town. And so I just wanted to ask, like, is there a sports team that you feel like has a really great culture that is, goes all the way through a stadium or arena down to each staff member that you kind of hold as that gold standard?
I mean, one of the ones that people talk about in the industry, and I've worked alongside of a little bit, is Notre Dame, and like their usher program is one of the gold standards. I know at one point it was largely a volunteer program, and they had people coming in from I think 35 different states and like even Canada they were so proud to represent Notre Dame and embody the Notre Dame spirit, and they truly it's everything is welcome to Notre Dame, and they really lived that, and they had such an amount of pride of being able to show that to every single person. They really took a liking to any time that they had an opportunity to engage somebody that they knew was coming to experience the pilgrimage of Notre Dame football. Whether it was a visiting fan from the team or somebody that was just, I had to experience Notre Dame football at Notre Dame. They love to be able to explain like why Notre Dame was special.
That's really lovely. I know we've talked a lot about first-time fans. I'm going to talk about casual fans and kind of their expectations, especially with rising ticket prices. So if I'm a fan and I went to, two or three games last year, and then now prices have increased
Hmm.
for whatever reason, maybe it's not even the team setting them or whatever, and so I'd love to just talk about kind of your philosophy around casual fans, how to keep them engaged or re-engaged, and how they're different, notably from first-time fans.
Yeah. So I think part of it is, especially as we're looking at this era of personalizing data and understanding more data, is really understanding what makes someone a casual fan. And are they a casual fan because of their spending habits, or are they a casual fan because they're not really a sports fan? They do it because other members in their family are sports fans and they want to support them. Because I think there are a lot of individuals that are diehard fans of their team, but they live too far away to represent that. And so like the way that they show their fandom of dressing in fan gear and revolving their day around game times and have six different group chats during the game, that doesn't show up on a balance sheet. But it doesn't mean that their fandom is any less, and it doesn't mean that they're any less valuable to a brand. So it's figuring out what are ways that you can engage them. Is there an at-home tailgate kit or like more geared tailored specifically towards the at-home fans or something like that? Thinking about how you can leverage those individuals. For the ones who are coming to a game, it's understanding what they're trying to get out of the game day experience. We talk about the jobs to be done theory, and sometimes people are just looking for a space to be able to get together with their friends. In summer, the baseball stadium provides a perfect opportunity to just sit outside, have a cold one, and be in a space where you can enjoy the sunshine for 3.5 hours. And there's nothing wrong with that either. It's you're providing the setting. So how do you make sure that people are getting out of that experience what they want to? Hopefully, you are teaching them something about your team or your brand, and there's a reason why they want to come back because they feel that belonging when they are in the stadium, that it's not just this was a place for me and my group to hang out for the night, but I met other people around me who were doing the same thing. And now we're all going to come back and do this over and over and over again. That's what I think, we should be looking at is how do we engage people so that they feel more a part of something. Really look at our stadiums, our venues, our arenas as third spaces and really capitalize on that.
I love that. I was thinking, it would be interesting if in the future there's more of a section for those that are yappers, right? Because sometimes
Hmm.
I'll go to a game and I'm actually really invested, really interested,
Yep.
and then there's someone behind me that just wants to have a conversation the whole time with their friends, which is absolutely, their prerogative, but highly annoying when
Yeah.
I'm like locked in. And so it's interesting as we think of them as third spaces, if we kind of accommodate that more, where it's like, this is a great section for those of you that are, casual fans or whatever, obviously the labeling and branding would be much better than what I just said, but that's really an interesting concept of if that's going to continue to evolve.
I know that there were some conversations around this coming out of the pandemic of like, what could we learn from the way that people did congregate and meet together that, we had pods and like people were getting together in pods and like, what would the stadiums of the future look like if we redesigned it in pods and not just long rows that are 36 seats and it's hard to climb over people, but like, how can you create more of those communal spaces so that there's 8 people hanging around a cocktail table and they're able to congregate how they want. Maybe there are still some sections where you're sitting in the stands and, cheering to all the organ music, but there are spaces that are available for people who just want to hang out and yap for the game.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's great. I think one of the kind of personal metrics that I've judged teams by, if I'm being honest, is when they find success after a long period of not having a high level of
Hmm.
success. The New York Knicks, the Carolina Hurricanes, both are, competing at the highest levels right now. And how are they treating those long-term fans, those first-time fans, and those casual
Hmm.
fans? So I love kind of your thoughts on as we get to the Stanley Cup Finals, as we get, to the NBA Finals and things like that. If you had any kind of advice or tips that you think is really helpful for teams during this time.
I do love the fact that they are creating spaces for people to find their people, right? The Carolina Hurricanes offered watch parties for game 3 and, sold out the arena. And for some people that may not be able to afford going to a Carolina Hurricanes game, they were able to at least enjoy the environment and be around like-minded people and have that experience. And I know, friends took their young son and like that was a core memory for him. And so it's being able to think about, how do you just create spaces for the fandom to exist? And that's one of the things that I love following with the Knicks right now is like you see how much that fandom is exploding all over New York City that people are putting their projectors onto city buildings so that more people can watch the game together. And I think the more that we reward that, that's going to grow your fandom.
And it creates those beautiful memories of connection and community. I have been watching a lot of videos of people
Yes.
celebrating in New York, and it's so fun and so joyous, and that's really,
Yes,
really lovely to see.
absolutely.
As we kind of, talk about the themes that we've, chatted through today, I want to talk about kind of organizations and how you've helped organizations create more autonomy and clarity throughout the fan journey. And I think there's so much overlap for our audience of visionary leaders, for those that are business owners and entrepreneurs, and how they can use these same principles to the kind of client journey in their
hmm
own business to make it kind of really accessible and clear to everyone.
I think one of the things that I look at is what is the goal that you are trying to create and how can you work backwards from that? And I'll give you an example. One of the things that I think about is a lot of teams put out a game day timeline and it's parking lots open at this time and gates open at this time and kickoff is at this time. But what we really want people in their seats for is when the team hits the field, because the team entrance is more the peak moment than kickoff. You ask anybody in the industry that their favorite moment is when the team hits the field and that crowd roars. And that's worth every single hour that we've put into planning for that specific game day. And you see the reward payoff of every single second that you were nervous in the pregame timeline, right? But we don't always tell people when that is and making sure that they're in their seats for that. So, but if they need to be in their seats for pregame, it's well, what time does the pregame show start? If it's a band show, and why should they be in their seats for that? Well, if they need to be in their seats for that, what time do they need to be at the gates, and what time do they need to be leaving their cars? And those kinds of details, the more that we can give people information so that we can reduce the cognitive load and make sure that they don't have to think about those things to enjoy the experience, I think that's going to help. If you think about it in from other industries, if you're going to a new restaurant, one of the number one things you do is you go to that restaurant's website and you look for their menu, right? You typically have an idea of what meal you're going to order before you get to that restaurant. And you typically have an idea of if you want an appetizer, you typically have an idea of what drink you might get. You have everything all planned out so that you're not trying to make those in the moment decisions sitting at the table, right? And so same kind of thing is like we want to be able to reduce that cognitive load and forcing people to make the panic decisions so that they can relax and enjoy the entire experience. And so the more information that we can give people up front so that they have more time to plan and have more time to make those decisions so that when they get to the experience, they get to just enjoy the experience. That I think is going to create bigger fans of the brand, bigger fans of the journey, bigger fans of the experience.
I love that. No, and I was just thinking kind of like the client journey from like a discovery call, right? So if I'm
hmm
talking with new clients, potential clients, like I do send an email saying like, hey, here's like be in a quiet space, maybe have a notebook, come with a few intentions and goals that you have to kind of guide the conversation. I think very, very similarly, right? As you take someone from like first time fan or researching you or whatever to like someone that's going to be a ride or die kind of client for you.
hmm
It's beautiful to use that fan journey as a way to check in and use that kind of radical hospitality because they should be taken care of every step of the way. I can't tell you how many times I've been on a like looking for a coach or working with someone and if they're late, they're
hmm
like they don't have a professional setup of some kind or something that feels like they're showing me respect from the jump, like I'm not going to invest time with them. And I feel like the fandom experience is very similar.
Right. Yeah. I completely agree with what you're saying. And the more that we can set expectations and honor those frameworks that we've set and the boundaries that we've set and honor those, I think the more that people are going to trust us. And I think that's a big part of it is how do you trust how are you enabling people to trust that you are taking care of them. They're investing their time, their resources, their just, disposable income, things that they've worked really hard for, and they're trusting you with that. So how do you honor that trust?
I often, when I'm visiting team sites, see how busted their tech is. And so you go to their website, you go to even find out when games are. One of the most annoying things is when I'm looking at local baseball games and they have the previous games at the top rather
Hmm.
than the upcoming games. So I have to
Yes.
scroll through March and April and all the way down to whatever month I'm in to even
Yes.
find out a game time, who they're playing, if they're even in town. And it's really interesting that I feel like there's been so much tech advancements in like tracking pucks and like what we see on TV screens and everything, but their actual websites are horrendous. And so I just didn't know if you had any thoughts on if you're seeing a shift there or anything like that.
I wish I was seeing a shift there, but I do think that there are some things that we are moving forward, and I think there are some things that we need to go back to the blocking and tackling and look at the way things are presented and whether that actually makes the fan journey easier. And that's one of the reasons why I started down this path that I'm on is I was struggling to find the information and I knew what I was looking for. And so if I was struggling to find the information as someone who worked in the industry, knew the exact information that I was looking for and couldn't find those details, how does someone who is coming for the first time or hasn't been there in a while or is really investing in an experience of, making a pilgrimage to the 30 Major League Baseball stadiums or something like that, where they're really checking something off of their bucket list. How do they make the most of that experience? And that's what I want to help organizations solve for is making that easier so that people say yes.
That's so beautiful. Is there any thing else you'd like to share or and where can the audience find you?
So the audience, the best way to get in touch with me is LinkedIn. So you can find me either at Katie Rudy or my page Game Day Ready. But I thank you so much for having me on. This has been a wonderful conversation. I love being able to share experiences with people who understand the fandom and hospitality language and being able to see that intersection. You brought up so many examples that I live and breathe every day between Durham Performing Arts Center and Durham Bulls. I love the local ties. So this was such a fun conversation. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. No, this was so fun for me too, especially because like I'm a bougie fan, right? And as a casual bougie fan or someone, depending on the sport, like I do have high expectations and I so appreciate kind of your purpose and how you're helping people because more often than not, I've seen when big companies come to sports events, I often see how confused many of the employees are and how, they end up talking about work, which is tragic. Like that's not the point of those kind of get-togethers.
Yeah. I don't think asking for things to be easier is bougie. Uh,
It's fair. It's fair. I love that.
I think you can eliminate that title from yourself.
Thank you. Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for watching Musings and Modalities. You can tune in the second and fourth Thursdays of each month at 3:30 p.m. Pacific, 6:30 p.m. Eastern for more fabulous episodes. Thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Musings and Modalities. The truth has a resonance, and if you felt that today, I invite you to subscribe to my channel. Be sure to share this episode with anyone ready to step into their legacy.